When Google says, ChatGPT also say, what say you? When you don't have enough people, implementing the shift system was a very, very bad idea. Failure of imagination on KKM part. 5,000 people applying for housemanship posts. This was a historical opportunity. You know, it's much easier to give out free chicken lah, cheap groceries to people, and you can spend all this thing on. Yeah, you can say. But you see, once the chicken is eaten already, where does it go? See, we chose not to invest in all those people. We chose to tell them, if you're not happy, you leave. We chose to underpay them. So they left lah. Now we will live with the shortage of sub-specialists. We have always a shortage. And because there's a shortage, people will be over in the government sector. My hours were 100 hours per week.
Being a doctor used to be seen as one of the greatest professions. But now when I tell people that I'm in medical school, they automatically go like, oh, you're gonna live like a lifetime of suffering, you won't have much money, you don't have life also. Why do you want to be a doctor? So we have always known that KKM, our Malaysian healthcare system, is actually suffering, including all the doctors, nurses, NAs who work inside. So during COVID, this was also very prominent in the news with all the contract doctor strikes, and it's very common practice for housemen, MOs and specialists to do like 12 to 14-hour days with unpaid OT, 33-hour on-calls, and yet we are still expected to be safe. Because of this, it's not a surprise that many graduates in Malaysia are moving to Singapore. So today we attempt to answer two questions. First, the KKM staffing crisis, and second, is it ethical for Malaysian medical students to move to Singapore? So today we have with us our guest, Dr. Tan Jeng. Yay.
Hello, Xiaoyu. How are you?
Very good. How are you, doctor?
I'm alright. Yeah.
So Dr. Tan is a consultant physician in internal medicine, and he's currently training to be a gastroenterologist.
Yes.
And he has worked 9 years in KKM and 10 years in UN. Okay, so doctor, we'll just jump straight into it.
Sure. Yeah. Okay, but before I start, some disclaimer. These are my personal views. In no way they reflect the hospital or the universities. They are all my own. And I've been given the questions, but I've not really prepared, so I'm speaking from the heart and what I really feel about certain things. So all personal views doesn't reflect the university, or even it may not even all my colleagues also in whether in private or in government. These are all my personal views. Okay.
Yeah, same goes for me. I'm just speaking on behalf of me as an individual. Yeah. Okay. So doctor, is the KKM truly at the brink of collapsing?
I think we have to understand that how do you define collapse? So if let's say whether we can give patients the best care possible as soon as possible, as when they need it, then no, we are not doing this. But if you're saying, are we managing to see patients after 1 year, even though they have a myocardial infarction a year ago? Yeah, we are managing. So if we say that we want high quality, very accessible healthcare in the instant, that's also very affordable. I think every healthcare system in the world is in a state of collapse, whether you're in the US, Switzerland, Japan, Singapore, or Australia. But are we somehow struggling and surviving along? Yes, we are. So we will somehow manage to survive, and I think it's kudos to all the hardworking doctors that no matter what, it's like, you know what, if everyone decides to go at 5 p.m. sharp, all the nurses decide to go home on time, the system would have collapsed a long time ago. There won't be any doctors. But because there are people who are willing to sacrifice their personal well-being, sometimes their mental well-being, and also their family life, and they're willing to stay extra 3-4 hours, somehow we managed to drag this dead body along and keeping it going. Yeah.
So you would say that like the KKM is currently persisting because of the healthcare workers and like them being over pushed lah.
Yeah, people doing charity work basically. If let's say everyone decides to be calculative and say, look, I don't want to do this I don't want to do charity work. You don't pay me, I'm not going to do it. If everyone does that, I can tell you, then all the uncle aunties, they're all complaining, waiting 4 hours in the ED. Yep, be prepared to wait 10 hours because that's how things will be. I think sometimes the issues are very complex, and at the risk of simplifying things too much and being unfair to the government and all, and I think we have this idealized healthcare, and of course the trinity of this ideal healthcare is high quality, accessible in time and place. That means if I need it now, I get it now, and highly affordable. But I guess in anywhere in this world, this is, you know the saying like, if it is good and cheap, it won't be fast. If it is good and fast, it won't be cheap. If it is cheap and fast, it won't be good. And this has always been the thing. And I think the government hospitals have always tried to be good and cheap, but it's not going to be fast. That's why people wait 5 years, 6 years. I think people have to be realistic. Yeah, but I think this problem, we've been talking about understaffing since 20, 30 years and even 60 years ago. And to the credit, many things have been done and things have improved. Okay, as there are more hospitals berpakar than ever before. But as all these things increase, the population has also increased. People also have become more educated. So 20 years ago when I was a house officer, hardly half of the people don't, if they have a broken bone, they don't come see the doctor because they go and see the traditional bone setter. Okay? But 20 years now, then they realize, hey, orthopedic surgeons are the best. Everyone now demands to be seen by an orthopedic surgeon. Everyone now demands to have the best care possible. Everyone demands to have spatial age plating done for them. Last time is set it as much as we can, then put a cast. Now I want to have plating done for me. So the quality of care has improved. The demands, the population, they have become more educated than people 20 years ago. And because of this, the number of people lining up for a service, so even though the number of doctors have increased, the number of orthopedic surgeons compared to 20 years have increased, but the demand has also gone up proportionally more than the increase in doctors. So that's why it feels as though there's no progress. And you know, sometimes when you're in the system, you feel like, look, you know, it feels so hopeless, you know, no progress. 20 years ago, we talked about staffing crisis. Now, 20 years on, so a lot of people get discouraged. But if actually you look at it from the big picture, there is progress, but we are not feeling it. And why we are not feeling it? KKM has the answer for it. And I think KKM, one of the ways they can do it, instead of, yes, giving us the data is not, we are humans. We need to feel it. They have to let us feel the improvement. Then only people will stay. But we'll save that for later. Yeah.
Okay. Can you take us back to like when you initially graduated med school? How was your housemanship like?
Okay, so 20 years, of course, I wouldn't dare say in my time, because life 20 years ago is very much different. So 20 years ago, we don't get sued as much as it is now. 20 years ago, people, you know, a lot of even senior doctors make mistakes. Patient die because of that mistake. But you know, the family is still so grateful. Thank you for taking care of my mother. It's like, actually, we made a mistake. That's why my mother died. But now everybody gets sued. So 20 years ago, we don't get sued so much. 20 years on, we get sued more. 20 years ago, the demand is less. There are less patients demanding the same kind of service. 20 years on, everyone wants to be special. Oh, I don't want to see my houseman. I don't want to see my MO. Now, last time people don't know, apa beza Heisho MO dengan pakar. Now people are like, I don't want to be seen by houseman. I don't want to see my MO. I don't want to see by the general specialist. I want to be seen by the sub-specialist. So people are more demanding than you say 20 years ago. People are more grateful 20 years ago. Now, I don't know, maybe people are more well-off, more educated and all. They're not so grateful 20 years ago compared to 20 years ago. And you know, things have changed, so we cannot be living. Of course, things have changed. 20 years ago, nobody has a smartphone. Now everybody. I still remember when one of my consultants was the first one in the whole hospital to get an iPhone 1. Okay, and that was such a big thing, and people said, what is this? You know, early adopter, always buy fancy gadgets, a lot of excess money. But now everybody has an iPhone. Okay, 20 years ago, nobody really heard of Dr. Google. Now there's Dr. Google. Now we got even new challenge. Dr. AI also add into the mix. No, so I can, the challenges of a doctor. So I always don't tell my junior, in my time, we used to be able to do this, because, in my time, yes, there were less of us, so we had to do the 36 hours on call, but in our time, we make a mistake, we don't get sued that easily. Now everything also, everything is a potential minefield. In our time, I don't have to fight with patients that say, hey, I read in Google, or Google says this. Now it's like Google says, not even Google says, ChatGPT also say, what say you? What, they're testing me, is it? Yeah.
Around how many % of patients are like that? Because like if they are, let's say like an older population, they may not be so fluent with tech. So would you say it's mostly younger?
Tell you what, you see, I worked I did my house machine in Kuala Terengganu first year as an MO in Kuala Terengganu. Terengganu, back then, slightly poorer state. They're lovely people, I love them to bits. It's like, they're great people, but not as educated. But here, you'll be surprised, 60, 70-year-old are telling you about ChatGPT, and most of them are retirees, government servants, professionals, highly educated people. Okay, so you can't say that old people are not tech savvy. In fact, a lot of them are very, very tech savvy. Yeah, so a lot of them are computer programmers, 70-year-old computer programmers, first few in the country. So you can't say that they are not tech savvy. In fact, they might be more tech savvy than me. Okay, and this is Petaling Jaya, upper middle class area. So it's totally different. And I think that's why there's never one size fits all. If you work in the Klang Valley, your challenges are different. You work in Kelantan, in a district hospital in Kelantan, it's different. You work in a district hospital in Sabah, Sarawak, it's different. You work in Kedah, a clinic kesihatan in Kedah, it's different. And I think at the same time, it's also the beauty of medicine, and it creates so much diversity, because you can take 10 specialists, 10 specialty trainees. They are all now training in but everyone has a different background, everyone has different experiences, everyone has seen different things because they worked in different parts of the country. Okay, so you know what? It's there's no one size fits all. There's no one size fits all, and my experience may be valid only for my time in my place, and it may be different for someone else. Yeah.
Okay, but going back to the staffing crisis itself.
Okay.
Back in your time, what problems did you face? Like in terms of manpower, were there similar problems to today?
I think, as I said, 20 years ago, the demand was less, but there also were less of us. So 20 years ago, the MMC number only goes up 500 a year. So if you can roughly guess which generation you are, I'm 46790. So if you are 468 something, 465, I know that you've started work. We have started work within 1 year of each other, 6 months of each other. Okay. Now, of course, in the early 2000s, late 2018, 19, the numbers was jumping about 2,000-3,000 a year. Okay, but of course, because of all the controversies and all that sort of thing, the jump in numbers have slowed down. But okay, so basically there were 300 to 400 new housemen a year. But of course, in the latest very troubling news, there were 550 in the last batch or something like that, which is crazy given the amount how the service has expanded in the last 20 years. So shortages have always been there, but of course the demand was also less 20 years ago. And of course, to deal with the shortage, we had to work the 36 hours, so we were on call. But technically, because we were on call, so basically on Monday morning, if I say I'm on call on Monday night, so I had to come at 5:30, 6 o'clock on Monday morning, work the whole day with my 2 other colleagues, okay, go on call but usually we stay late, so my colleagues only go home at 6:30, 7 o'clock. See, we always come early and leave late. We don't come on time and we don't leave on time. Why? Because we want to help our friend who's on call, so we always leave late, so 7:30, 7 p.m. Then I'll be solo from 7:30 p.m. until 5:30 a.m. the next day. Okay, because my friends, knowing that they had to be on call on Tuesday night, they will do the same for me. So I will stay also, even though I'm post-call, I'll stay until 7:30 p.m. the next day because I want to help my friend. We settle all the work so that they can go and have dinner and then get some rest and then start on call, take care of the ward, and we'll come early on Wednesday morning at 5:30 to start taking blood and relieve that person. So that's why technically, even though we work 36 hours, but we always had 3 people in the ward. And when we have 3 people in the ward, many hands make light work. And there's also something that is intangible. So our friendship tends to be much stronger because all of us try to help each other. And then even though now, many years later, I'm still very close to the people I did housemanship with, we're still in contact. And we meet up, and some of them because of life and family and all that sort of thing, we don't talk to each other as often. But if let's say you bump to each other at a conference, suddenly, it's like, hey, what happened to you? It's like, what the heck? And then the conversation will continue like just as we left 20 years ago, because I helped you, you helped me, we suffered together. So the bond is very close. So what happened when the numbers, so in Malaysia, Malaysia has always a problem, they try to ape developing country. You think by aping the developed country, you become developed. You don't become developed country by aping them. You become developed because your fundamentals are correct. So the problem is, the developed countries started having a shift system. So we decided, we should have a shift system. But the problem is, developed countries have more money, so they actually managed to have more doctors. So what happened is, they implemented the shift system without the required number of people. So for example, we work 36 hours, but there's always 3 people in the ward. So when someone has to go to OT, there's 2 of us left to request the scans, take blood, and make sure the patients are stable. Okay? The numbers, but if you want to have 3 people in the ward at any one time with the shift system, you need to have at least, okay, let's say at night you only need 1 person to be the night shift, but you need 3 people for the morning shift, 3 people for the PM shift. So you actually need 7 house officers. What happened is, this is what you call theoretical. What happened is, the number went up from 3 to 5, not quite enough for the shift system, and then they implemented the shift system. So what happened is, because you have now a shift system, you have 2 for the morning shift, 2 for the afternoon shift, and 1 for the night shift, for example. So the problem is, you're working shorter hours, but your shorter hour is actually more intense, because now you have 2 persons trying to run a 50 patient ward. When before I have 3 person running a 50 patient ward, if 1 person has to go to OT to assist the surgeon, okay, they only have 1 person left to try to request for scans, take blood, attend to collapsing patients. Back then, there were 1 person go to OT, there's still 2 of us, so 1 person can still run to get scans, and I can stay and continue taking blood. So by the time at 5:30 p.m., all the work is actually finished. So what happened is, we have a shift system when we don't have enough people. So what happened is, the work became more intense. So when the work is more intense, what happened? At 5 o'clock, you don't care about your friend already. You're so tired for the day. You just want to leave on time at the end of the shift. Of course, realistically, there will always be work that is not finished. So what happened is, the person who comes in for a night shift suddenly got all this extra work that has been left over from the afternoon shift. And then the next morning, he has to take the morning bloods. Because I'm only coming my shift at 7 o'clock, I'm not going to come early to help you take blood. Okay? So what the shift system does is, it creates a lot of resentment. I don't like you because you never work for me, and then the next morning I leave work for you lah. Okay, the friendship is way much less. People don't feel as close. I can tell you, if you talk to the people who did their housemanship 18, 19 years ago, they will have, I still have this contact with this friend, and this friend. I can tell you, everyone now hates their colleagues. They have a few cliques they are close to, the rest they are enemies with each other one. And I don't blame them for it. It is the nature of a shift system. Okay, because I'm so overworked, I won't stay back to help you. Okay, and because you never stay back and help me, I don't feel close. And then last time, I'm here 36 hours, a whole day I'm with you. The next day, I'm also with you. I'm only not with you during the night shift. Yeah, but we are together. So we are very close to each other. We help each other. Nowadays, I finish my shift, bye. So, and then sometimes because of the different way shift is attended, nobody sees each other for weeks at a time. But you see, the problem is, I wouldn't say that the night shift is less intense than my on-call, because for my on-call, my friends will actually stay until 6:30, 7:30 to help me. And the next day, by 5:30, they are here to come and help me take morning bloods already. So, but now because of the shift system, and everyone only comes in at 7 a.m., so I have to start taking blood by myself. So even though back then when I was a houseman, there were only 3 of us, but from 5 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. there were still 3 of us. 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. there were 3 of us. So taking morning bloods was divided among 3 people. Now the morning bloods is divided by 1 person only, because I'm only supposed to come in at 7 a.m. I will only come in at 7 a.m. because nobody helps each other anymore, and because of, see, nobody is as close. We are intensely close to each other. So I know I need to come in early because I also want you to come in early, help me the next day. Whereas, okay, this person left work for me the other time, so I also leave work for them. This person didn't come and help me the next time, I also. So everyone becomes totally calculative. So if you ask me, when you don't have enough people, implementing the shift system was a very, very bad idea, because it didn't improve the quality of the care. In fact, it worsened and it regressed. If you talk to me about, 20 years ago, I think everyone's blood was ready by 7 o'clock. Why? Because there were 3 of us. Now nobody's blood is ready by 8 o'clock because there's only 1 person trying to take the whole ward's blood. And the number of people in the ward has increased. So the intensity has increased. So the night shift, they work 8 hours, but it's an intense 8 hours with no time for rest. Okay, so if you ask me whether I had it better or the current shift system, I say I have it better, because there were more people coming to help you with the work. Okay, you are more tired because you work 36 hours. Okay, you slept 1 hour in between here and there, but there were 3 people. So you can actually hey dudes, can I take a 1 hour nap, because from 6 to 7, whoever was a bad call last night, you can actually afford a 1 hour nap. Now, because your shift, you're supposed to work 8 to 8, you're not supposed to sleep during your shift. So you can have a very bad call, and still at 5 a.m. you have to start taking blood. And sometimes what happens is the patient don't choose the time to collapse. They can collapse at 5 a.m. Then you are busy resuscitating until 7 o'clock. Then all the morning bloods are not taken. Okay. Then when the specialists come, okay, all your friends in the morning or in the morning shift will get scolded because none of the bloods are taken already. Then what happened? People will resent the night shift person, but actually it's not the night shift person's fault. So even though if everyone is hardworking, everyone did their part, but because of the nature of our job, people will still hate each other anyway. And that's why I always felt we can work to improve. I think there should be enough people. If you have 3 person on the night shift, 3 person on the morning shift, 3 person in the evening shift, then yes, I think the shift system will be perfect, because you don't create all this resentment between each shift. There is no work passed between each shift. Okay, because if I'm resuscitating a patient, 2 other persons can still continue taking blood, and the whole thing will run. But when you don't have enough people and you try to aid the Westerners and do the shift system, and you know how Westerners do it? They will offer you good money, and then the people go to UK, and then so they can afford it. But then you're stealing from the poor to give to the rich. But anyway, we'll talk about this. So if you ask me, I prefer I would say you give me the old 30. If you don't have enough people, I want the old on-call system. Once you have enough people, then yes, you can implement. But when you try to do it 6:30, neither here, neither there, it just gets worse.
So actually, what do you think contributes to having 2 less manpower? Actually, because before this, right, during the contract doctor era, in 2020, they said there were too many doctors, but now there's too little.
Actually, there's no such thing as too many doctors. There are always too many bad doctors. There will always be not enough good doctors. There will always be a shortage of good doctors, but there will always be an oversupply of bad doctors.
What do you define as good and bad?
No, people can do work you see, again, this is perception. You see, so this is a failure of imagination on KKM part. When we had this portion where we have 5,000 people applying for housemanship posts, this was a historical opportunity. You see, that's why a lot of times I don't know who runs the human resource in KKM. It was a historical opportunity to make sure that if we now we are crying over spilled milk now, but 6 years ago, if we played our cards right, today we will be seeing all these people graduating, becoming pakas. We will have 5,000 pakas. Okay, not all of them will become pakar lah. Okay, let's be realistic, because some of them, some of them will want to become GPs and all that sort of thing and all. But I will have at least 2,000 pakars, 2,000 pakars scattered around the whole country. Every single hospital, every single district hospital could have become a hospital daerah berpakar. Every hospital will be a pakar. And then when you have 5 pakars per hospital, work is much less, isn't it? So then what happens? When work is less, I have good quality of life. Do you think I will want to go do private practice where I had to set all the lines, take the blood myself, do a CBD by myself, and the patient deteriorate at 2 o'clock, I had to go in myself? Yes, I get paid well, but I had to do it myself. Now, but if there's 5 of us, who would want to leave for private? Actually, we had the historical opportunity to stop the brain drain. You see, people are suffering in KKM. So why suffer in KKM when I can suffer and be paid well in private? You see, people think that in private it's luxurious. No, it's not. If you ever meet people in private, they work very, very hard. And because people pay, they demand more from you. They expect you to come and see. Okay? People think that, oh, private people can be on holiday. No. Okay? I want to see by a respiratory physician. I don't want to be seen by the gastroenterologist. I got a respiratory problem, I want to see the respiratory physician. And if let's say I take on this person on Monday, and he's still by Thursday, it might be my holiday already, but I'm sorry, I still have to go and continue seeing because the guy is not discharged yet. Because I paid money for this guy, I still want to continue to see him. I don't want to see someone else. Okay, they can make their demand because they're in private. I paid money already. So people have to give up their holidays. Okay, it's not easy, but they pay you well, they remunerate you well. So people are like, okay, it's worth the sacrifice. Okay? But if I had to suffer in KKM because of the way they did all these things, and now there is not enough MOs, there are not enough specialists, and I had to suffer, the MO specialists had to do MO work, I had to do houseman work. Okay? So what happened? So why suffer as a MO in KKM when I can be a MO in private? There is no career progression, but at least it's well paid. So what happened is KKM lost the historic opportunity to have solved this problem, solved the brain drain, and because why? They decided to do the easy thing. Okay, there's not enough COVID, just push them all into COVID. And then when people complain, hey, come on, I need my career progression and all that sort of thing. Kalau tak puas hati, letak jawatan. So you tell them to do this, they letak jawatan lah. So finally, when COVID is over, where did that 5,000 housemen go? 3,000 of them have left. You're left with 2,000. So this was like pre-COVID. This was the pre-thing. And then, of course, not everyone will have the ability to pass exams and all that sort of thing. And then, lo and behold, you only got 700, 800 people graduating as pakars. Okay, so what happened? When you got 700, 800 people graduating as pakar, of course, the majority of them would be needed in the state hospital, so the state hospital get the bulk of it. Then those who didn't get the state hospital, okay lah, we send one of you to go to the. So imagine if I had to go to the district, so orang diri, be on call every day, why would I want to do this? So they quit lah. Okay, but if let's say there's 5 of us going there, okay lah, I have good quality of life, I can take holiday and all. Yeah, you see, people will suffer. There will always be one unlucky. Nobody can expect. But if you smoothen the age, you sweeten things a bit, then people like, you know what, there's 5 of us, okay, so we only on call once, once every few days. If I had to be on call 30 days in the district, don't get paid very much. Of course, a lot of them, they finish the exam, they leave. Okay, they don't even bother. It's like, forget about it, I'm giving my dream for subspecialty. I'll just go and become a general physician. And that's it. Yeah. Okay, but if you make life good, of course they will leave. So, okay, spilled milk already lah. Spilled milk. We had 5,000. Those 5,000 housemen, okay, today we could have like 2,000-3,000 pakars, every hospital. But then, and then everyone will be living luxurious life. Everyone will be doing their subs. Okay, and then we will have like the number of gastroenterologists, cardiologists will hit. Every hospital would have had a cardiologist. Okay, then you see the problem is now there are so few cardiologists, so they are all concentrated in Sedang. Everybody refers to Sedang. So Sedang clinic is running until like 8 p.m., 9 p.m. The angiologist is running until 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. So imagine if they were able to increase the number of pakars. Okay, clinics, 3 pakars running a clinic will take 5 hours. But you've got 10 pakars running a clinic, it would have been finished in an hour. Everyone will have good quality of life. would people be complaining? Okay, people won't be leaving. People are like, so good quality, I want to stay.
But also, right, the reason that the government couldn't absorb them is also because of budget limitation. Like they cannot like pay all of them.
You see,
right.
so this is how you want this. Again, in life there will never be enough money. Okay, there will be not enough money everything. If I want to buy a Ferrari, and my kids' education, but you see, imagine. But you ask yourself, what is buying a Ferrari? It will depreciate the moment it goes out of the room. It gives you fun for about 1 year or 2 years after that. But if let's say instead of using that Ferrari, I invest into my kids' education. Okay, and then my kids will earn more money. Then you see, a lot of them, they buy the Ferrari, then ask the kids, you can't get a scholarship, that's your problem. And then they end up in some low-paying job and all. But you see, in the end, your Ferrari will grow old and then resale value will go down. But your kid is now has some entry-level job, and then when you grow old and retire, now your kid has to take care of you with. But imagine if you invested in their education instead, and they are like making millions. Then when you grow old, they can give millions to you, right? Correct or not? So the KKM, what happened is, instead of thinking into the future and say like, look, we can solve the shortage of specialists, shortage of subspecialist crisis once and for all, invest all that money into creating. And then you see, you have to understand, it's a market economy. How many cardiologists can the private absorb? You see, if let's say the number of cardiologists suddenly, you imagine this 5,000 housemen, they are all now PACA, all now doing subspecialty training. Okay, if let's say one of them, you have 100 of them doing cardiology, okay, do you think 100 of them will go into the private one shot? If they go into private, they'll crash the market in private so fast, okay, that all the private hospitals also don't want to don't want to take them in. And then of course, you see, so it's a balanced thing. One is again, a lot of it, there is a lot of it is theoretical, but just imagine, and the quality of life will be so good in the okay lah. So a lot of them will probably still stay in the government side, okay. But if you want to go private also, the private hospital will want to take you. So I have had friends who they wanted to go to this private hospital, but they had already 5 cardiologists there. So they said, no, we are not going to take you. Okay.
Is there like a waiting list for you to go into private?
Oh yes, there is. But of course, if you go to a smaller town, then there's no waiting list lah. So imagine if you have 100 cardiologists, you want to fill up all the in the small town. Right? So the access to healthcare for private will also be in the small town be settled, but a lot of them will probably stay in the government. See, we chose not to invest in all those people. We chose to tell them, if you're not happy, you leave. We chose to underpay them. So they left lah. They left for Australia, Singapore and all. And now we are suffering from the consequences. And, I felt that the government just missed a grand opportunity to solve this problem. So now we will live with the shortage of subspecialists. We have always a shortage. And because there's a shortage, people will be old in the government sector. And when you have to understand, the people in the private, some of them will retire, grow old and die. So then the private hospital will need, and then they will always be able to pull people in. Yeah. So you lose that one cardiologist in, let's say, this hospital, then the whole system, the system is not robust, and what's that word for it? It's not robust enough that I can survive one person leaving. But if you have 100 cardiology training, 100 cardiologists, look at the very easy. Leave not go to private, and then you take out another 5 more. Then the other 5 more, they will actually kill the. See, if there's like suddenly the number of private cardiologists increase by 100%, that means their pay will go down theoretically by 50%. Suddenly,
so much.
No lah, because there's, you see, market demand, right? Okay, I'm speaking in terms of theoretical. You see, if there's 50 in the private, suddenly another 50 join them. What will happen? Competition, right? Just like GPs. Back then, a GP can earn comfortable living. Now a GP cannot, because during the COVID, a lot of them left to it. So now there's a GP clinic at one shop lot. There's one in each corner and one in the middle. So now the price for one MC is, I heard, it has gone down to as low as 5 ringgit, 10 ringgit. Okay, why? Because competition. I need the business to survive. So the same thing, if the government had trained up the everyone, that 5,000 people, 4,000, to become as many specialists as you can, what happens is you create this large pool of cardiologists, and if people always leave at a constant rate, but then every year when the people leave, all these people in private, they work until their 70s, 80s. So then it's suddenly like, oh no, the amount is like, now if there is like from 10, you go up to 20, 30 people to choose from. People are like, okay, I can choose name. If I'm very rich, I choose name. But if I'm not so rich, it's like, hey, who's giving me the best rates? And then people will start competing on rates. Yeah, when you start competing on rates, then you will drive the market. Then people will see, those who are in government, hey, the cardiologist is not making 100,000 a month anymore. He's only making 20, 30, 40, 50,000 a month. It's only 3-4 times what I'm earning now. But the work is so much worse, and he has to go in at 2-3 o'clock. I hear when I'm in government practice, I actually, the patient line bung at 2 o'clock in the morning, I can ask my MO to go and do it. It's like, hey, maybe it's better for me to stay in government service. See, but at the end of the day, no one is an angel, no one is a saint. Everyone will think of their best self-interest. So the government, a smart government, would have manipulated the self-interest in such a way that it benefits the rakyat and all. But what happened is, it's much easier to give up free chicken lah, cheap groceries to people, and you can spend all this thing on. Yeah, you can say. But you see, once the chicken is eaten already, where does it go? But you invest in the healthcare, you invest into developing this houseman into a cardiologist. This guy will be a cardiologist for the next 30, 40, 50 years. And and when there's so many guys in the private, the guys who are in government cannot leave for a private, so they stay, and then they will expand the service in the government.
Now I hear that like specialty sports are more, like there are more specialty sports to train. Is that true? Like, do you see that?
Yeah, it is. Of course, it is true. It is true. But you see, it did not expand. So you see, we had this historical 4,000, 5,000 house officers. Okay, they should have increased the spot. Okay, but what happened is the government always likes to do things by half measures. So they finally increased the number of HLP from 150 to 300. Okay. Well, if you still had that 5,000 house officers, it wouldn't have been enough. But so many of them have left. Okay, that we cannot even get enough people to fill up this 300 HLP spots. So it's a case of too little, too late. Okay, so now we increase. Finally, after so many years, we increase the number of spots. But then there are no takers. Why? Because a lot of them have gone aesthetic, gone overseas, gone to GP. So now we have nobody to take these spots. Okay, so how many pakars will we be graduating? It will probably be more than what we had in the year 2018, 2019, but not anywhere near that they can collapse the pay of people in private practice, and not anywhere near that every hospital in this hospital daerah in this country will become a hospital berpakar. So everything works on everything. Actually, if you look, it's all economics. It's supply and demand. Okay, the more supply there is, if the supply outstrips demand, prices will fall. If the demand outstrips supply, prices will go up. Okay, when you had 5,000 house officers, that was a chance. And if you converted all those 5,000 hospitals to subspecialist surgeons and all that sort of thing, and the thing is, once they finish, they'll be there for the next 20, 30 years. All you need is the money put in. But of course, they wanted to put the money for other things, buy votes and all that sort of thing. There's actually, where there's a will, there's a way lah. If there's a will, there's a way. I'm sure you hear about the people who sell for their children's education. They just drink coffee with white rice, and then sell all the land and all for the child to study medicine. And then of course, then having sacrificed so much, of course, then I want to go to private practice ASAP and make back all the money from my parents. Yeah, but the government could have done something similar, and in fact, they don't even have to do something so drastic, because we have oil. you just need to the oil money, just repurpose the oil money. But you know, they decide to use it to buy boats instead. So there's free chicken, throw things here, throw things there, and all that sort of thing lah. You know, you build brand new hospitals, who benefits? The contractors benefit. They create, increase the GDP. Of course, you buy a new computer, but there's no software to run that computer. There's nothing what. Yeah. So you got I want to build hospital PG. I want to build Who benefits? The contractors, government cronies, and all that sort of thing. Build hospital, yay, create jobs. You know, contractor work and all that sort of thing. But when the hospital is built up, okay, so who's the doctors who are going to run that place? Where are the nurses that are going to run the place? Instead of building more hospitals, they're like, why not you create the software, okay, to run more doctors so people don't go get overwork and people don't leave.
So doctor, do you feel like these problems are due to the low budget allocation to healthcare? Because now I heard that I think it's not confirmed yet, but the last I've read, we might be having a 10% cut to the healthcare budget.
Well, I think sometimes it's actually also not totally about allocation, because I think in the NHS you can allocate an infinite amount and there will be never enough. But I see a lot of things, corruption is always a problem. Of course, we heard of the 1,000 ringgit hammers and all that sort of things. So a lot of things is how all these government things are done. So you know, let's say something only costs 50 ringgit, but the vendor that the government can only officially buy from charges 150 ringgit. And then so the thing ends up being 3 times more expensive for something that costs for something that's supposedly very cheap. So a lot of these things happens in a lot of places. And it's not just in Malaysia, it happens in the US, it happens in Australia, UK and all that sort of thing. But there is probably less effort to weed this out than in other places. And I of course, I don't want to accuse anyone of anything. And of course, if we bring it to the court of law, then would this charge then? But I think from our casual observation, we can see that there are a lot of things that never gets repaired, or they seem to be in a perpetual state of being repaired. Everyone have a right to really, really expensive drugs, the latest, most beautiful drugs. Okay, so one of the ways, of course, if you want to reduce the cost of drugs, you must be able to invest into the research, future research. You got so much money, you know, sometimes you have to understand the drug company invested so much money into creating this drug, to do the RCT for this drug and all that sort of thing, for the research. You know, all these drugs don't come out of nowhere. Okay, then I of course want to make my profit. You know, the government could. Okay, I always tell people this story. Do you know where vancomycin come from? Vancomycin, the antibiotic. Do you know where it come from?
No.
It actually came from the soil of Sarawak.
Oh.
Yes. So someone dug up some of the soil samples, and then they sent it over to the company, and then they created, and they isolated this bacteria from it, and it was from this bacteria that they derived vancomycin. Yeah. So of course you say biopiracy, blah 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 blah. But you have to understand what biopiracy. If you know, it stayed in the soil in Malaysia, it would have stayed in the soil only. Because why? We refuse to do the research into our own forests and all. What we do, we only chop down our forests, and then once you chop down the forest, sell off the timber, it's gone forever. Okay? Instead of researching what potential antibiotics, chemotherapeutic agents that's growing in the forest, in the soil, and all, we chop the forest, turn it into palm oil. Okay? And then after that, when the drug company finds out something, we accuse them of biopiracy. This is like Malaysians who go to Australia, and now there's this guy, his father is Malaysian, and now he's representing Australia at the World Cup, and then we want to claim him. It's like, hello, why did his father go to Australia in the first place? You know, so same thing. We don't want to do research into it, but when someone discovers something great from it, then we want to claim it. So same thing. So it's making new drugs is hard work. We are not willing to do a hard work, but we always want everyone to sell it to us cheap. Is that fair? So that's beside the point. Again, there are many ways to reduce healthcare costs and all that sort of thing. But to a large extent, can you cut pay to the doctors? Yeah, you can do that. That's about.
I think they're already doing that.
No, you see, that is a strategy. But whether it's a smart, viable strategy, you have to understand, we now live in a globalized world. So Australia is crying out for more doctors. Singapore is crying for more doctors. UK, Ireland, okay. The last few months, they are not anymore because suddenly they are producing they have produced enough of their doctors. So suddenly they decide that we want to cut down the amount. But in a few years' time, when their own so during COVID, it was special because COVID, a lot of doctors got infected and died. So a lot of these rich kids from rich countries, they're like, oh, I don't want to sacrifice my life. So in the year 2020, 2021, 2022, a lot of them graduated from medical school, didn't want to do housemanship. So they opened up the floodgates to Asians and Singaporeans, Malaysians and all that sort of thing. So Malaysians flood there and fill up all the posts. Then suddenly now that the danger of COVID has passed, everyone wants to become doctors again. So what happens? Then the UK introduced a law to say that we must prioritize our local graduates because they cannot outright discriminate against, because the law says that we have to be fair and meritocratic based. So they actually bother to introduce a law to say that we will discriminate against people who are not locals. Kudos to them, they actually have to make a law and they make it clear. Yeah, but 20 years ago, why don't the doctors leave? Because we couldn't. I passed my MRCP, I tried just for fun, I applied for a job in the UK. So I wrote to this hospital. This hospital said, okay, yeah, congratulations passing your MRCP. Please get a GMC registration and show us proof of GMC registration before we can proceed with your application. So I went to GMC. GMC said, please furnish us with proof of job offer before we can give you the thing. So basically it's a chicken and egg thing. Basically it's a way of telling we don't want you. Okay? Because chicken and egg thing.
Because without GMC, you cannot get offer letter.
I cannot get an offer letter, but without an offer letter, I cannot get a GMC registration. So which comes first? Chicken egg thing lah. So basically, at that point in time, in the year 2012, they didn't need us. They didn't need it. But then in 2020, 2022, everyone can come into the UK to get a job. Now they have enough already. They say they close the gates again. So of course, you go back to status quo. So maybe in the next few years, Malaysian government can go back to abusing their healthcare workers lah. But for the 2020s and all, people are just leaving in droves. So again, it's a market economy, supply and demand. Okay, so once they have enough supply, fulfill demand already, there's so much supply, then the UK, Australia, and US, Ireland will cut down the number of people they take. Okay, then the government can go around like mistreating the healthcare workers. But when they were in the year 2020, they believed that it was still 2008, 2009. So they applied this strategy has worked for us for all these years. Why change? So they applied the same strategy to the current generation of doctors. And of course, the current generation of doctors don't take shit. No, it's not like our generation. My generation, we just take shit. Why? Because I got nowhere to go. I couldn't get a job in the UK. So I just suck it up and just tahan lah. And now there's Singapore, there's Australia, Then why should I suck it up? So they go. So that's why there's a shortage. So in the globalized world, you can't get away by underpaying people. Your market rates have to be competitive, or you offer, such good working conditions that, so it's either working conditions, pay, best to have working conditions, good and also high pay. But if you can't compete in that, you see, everyone is different. Not everyone will leave for good pay. Okay, but you got good working condition, reasonable pay, improvement from 10 years ago, you might get enough people to stay. But if you want to compete on underpaying the doctors, still make them work like shit, and then expect them to stay in a globalized world, the KKM is deluded. It's not going to happen. Yeah. Now, of course, in the last few years, you can see that maybe UK, US, Singapore is cutting down. Then, okay, fine. Maybe you can continue to, but situation is never the same one. So in a few years' time, things may change, and then they'll still be going to provide lousy working condition and poor pay, and then people will leave again. So
I think among like my friends who are thinking about going to Singapore after we graduate, our main concern is like the career progression being better there and also good pay lah, as you said. I think the main part of it is the predictability, because you know like once you do like your HO, then it's a very meritocratic based system where you get to specialize.
I will actually beg to differ with you. Singapore does not actually want you. They only want you to fill the post that Singaporeans don't want to fill you. So of course they say there is training, but you know GP training is also GP training, right? Okay, whether you get what you want in the end, that's a different matter. They want you to fill the post as Singaporean. So if you, of course, different again. No, different years are different. Some years they'll get to do cardiology, gastroenterology, and all because there were no Singaporeans. The Singaporeans themselves were leaving for Australia and UK and everywhere else. Okay, but in the next few years, see what is good advice today in the year 2026 will be bad advice in 2028, 2029, and then will become good advice again in 2030, 2031. Things never change because everything is dynamic. So UK cuts down the number of foreigners, suddenly Singaporeans stay back. Then when you go down to Singapore, what happens? The Singaporeans want to be cardiologists and all. They don't want to do the GP work, so you end up, they will shunt all the Malaysians to do GP work. But then UK reopen, all the Singaporeans leave, suddenly, hey, you're right place, right time, hey, I got cardiology now. So again, we had to look at so people say, hey, I got cardiology, what? Come to Singapore, Singapore is great. Yeah, great for you, but your juniors will come in the year will be terrible. And then people say, don't come to Singapore, it's terrible. And then someone will go in there and then suddenly they reopen UK reopen and Singaporeans leave and then suddenly gets cardiology. They, sure, why Dr. Tan give bad advice? You see, because everything is dynamic. What is good advice for maybe in January 2026, good advice will become bad advice in February, March, and then become good advice in April and May. So things change. Please don't quote me, but but in general, Singapore wants to only fill up the post, and unless you're very outstanding, and you also so happen to work with one of the boss who's on the training board, you might not get whatever you want. Of course, good pay is always there. So again, what you want in life, want good pay, good quality of life. I don't care about career progression, then by all means. But I want to start a family, and hey, look, you can get landed property in Malaysia. You don't need just HDB in Singapore.
For you, right, back then, you were also given the option to go Singapore, is it? Because back then, UM...
No, I wasn't from UM, I'm from PMC. But I was the last batch of PMC that can go down to Singapore. But the reason I wanted to do medicine, when I said that I want to help people, I really seriously want to help people. So I was thinking places like Terengganu, Sabah, where there were poor doctor-patient ratio. So I didn't have to agonize over it about not going to Singapore. Because it was very clear. What for go to a place where there were really plenty of doctors and they're very well off, and they have such good access? Why do I need to help those people? Okay, so that's why I actually ended up in Terengganu, because Terengganu was one of my main choices for my housemanship. Because I actually seriously, I looked at the stats, which had the poorest doctor-patient ratio. Sabah had the worst. Terengganu was actually number 2 at that point in time. So I actually applied for that.
So that's why you also decided to stay in government to service our people who cannot afford private.
Well, in UM, you actually had to pay quite high rates. But yeah, and of course, I'm interested in research and teaching, and UM is the one that afforded me teaching. Once I go private, I don't get to do much teaching. You can actually, some of these private units actually have like the training units. They are actually applying to be training universities to train specialty and all that sort of thing. But it's not the same as in government. I probably won't get much students anymore.
Speaking of moving to other states, right? When you work with KKM, they will send you to other states. Like, let's say I'm from KL, but they send me to Sabah, Sarawak. Then, of course, if let's say I'm 26 or 27 already, let's say I have my own family, then this means I have to leave them. So, what do you think can be done about this? Because many doctors also they refuse. I think in Sabah, 50% of the doctors were sent there. They said, no, I don't want to be sent there.
Okay. So I used to be hardline, but in the old days I felt, because I applied to Terengganu and I willingly went, but one of the things I realized 20 years into the job is it's a very it's hard on your social life, because every 2-3 years you're moving. So after Terengganu, 3 years in Terengganu, I was in Seremban 3 years, then I was in Klang, Then only I moved to UM. But in that decade that was where I missed so many weddings, I missed so many of my friends' events. Okay, half the people in my church either got married or moved away. And then the girls that I used to be interested, by the time you come back, it's like, what happened? It's like, oh, she got married. Oh, she moved overseas. It's like, you're like, what's there left for me? Actually, no. So there was an intangible price I paid. There was actually a silent price I paid. So not only was I poorly paid, I really went and I was poorly paid, but I actually paid the price. So if you ask me now, would I have gone? I probably wouldn't have gone. And I'm more sympathetic to people who refuse to go to Sabah Sarawak. It's like, because the thing is, what if, my mother had, someone's mother may be having stage 4 cancer. I don't have very many years left. If you send me to Sabah Sarawak, I can only come back once every 3-4 months. That's not fair. Okay? Of course, you will say, hey, we need people in Sabah Sarawak. True. Okay? So, but you also have to think about the human factor. And look, my family is like, if you are married, you have kids, your parents are in KL. If you're on call that night, you can drop your kids with your parents safely. Nowadays, even it's hard to find overnight babysitters, and even if we can find an overnight babysitter, can you trust the babysitter? Because there's so many things of the babysitter's husband go and abuse the kid and all that sort of thing. So many of these kids found choked to death and all that sort of thing. And these kind of things happen because at the end of the day, these are not your own kids. The babysitter's own kids, so they might not take care as much as they give sedatives to the kids to keep them to keep quiet. So this because these are not their own kids. And if your own kids, you give to your parents, or because these are the grandparents, of course they will take better care than some random stranger. So when you move, you bring your family. Okay, what? You're going to leave your children here? Then you lose the bonding with them. Then they will become strangers. Okay, you take them along, you lose the family social support, and then you need to find some random stranger to become the babysitter. So there is a price to pay, and you cannot be forever. Like I said, you cannot be. Back then, 20 years ago, there wasn't much of a choice for people who want to be doctors. Now there's so much more choices. Why are we still making people to make these bad choices? You can say, look, let's plan for the future. So this is where I want to talk about some locality-based affirmative action. Let's plan for the future. Nobody wants to go to Sabah Sarawak. Then, you know what? More university spots in medicine in UM should be given to Sabah Sarawak. Okay? The number of spots in UMS, if you want to study in UMS, you must serve the people of Sabah when you finish. Everyone must do their housemanship. Every graduate of UMS must do their housemanship in Sabah. Everyone who graduated from UNIMAS must do their housemanship in UNIMAS.
That way, people from KL won't have to go there, or like people from Semenanjung won't have to go all the way there.
Or if you already know this is the policy, because you have to understand, Sabah Sarawak is the one with the shortest, okay? With the shortage. So of course you must prioritize your state. So if I finish my pre-U, I'm thinking of applying. Okay, maybe my results aren't that great, so I know I'm not going to get UM. I'm thinking of UNIMAS and Sabah. So I must be willing to pay the price to, okay, I know already. You make it clear that before, So even for UM, I believe that, we should give more spots to people from Sabah Sarawak. So when they finish, they will go back to Sabah Sarawak. And also, there's one more thing. There's something that I found out that is very, very strange. There's this thing called Elang Wilayah. So if let's say I'm from Semenanjung and I go and work in Sabah, I can actually get Elang Wilayah an extra $1,000.
Oh, in your salary?
Yeah, in my salary. So this is a way of encouraging, but the flights from Sabah, Sarawak is so expensive. Okay, this extra 1,000 is not worth very much. So that's why there are no tickets. Okay? But for people from Sabah, Sarawak, if they choose to work in Sabah, Sarawak, they actually don't get this Elang Wilayah. They get the Elang Wilayah if they work in Semenanjung. Shocking, isn't it? Because this thing was created for government servants. So technically, I'm a government servant. So it makes sense for all the other government servants like clerks, teachers, and all to, if you want to move them around, then you give them this. But for doctors, nobody wants to go to Sabah Sarawak. So you cannot say that Sabahan Sarawakians who want to serve those states don't get the Elang Wilayah. It should be like whoever goes. It shouldn't be like, oh, because I'm far away from home, I get 1,000. Yes, it should be that, but it should be like, but you see, I don't want the Sabahan Sarawakians to leave home, isn't it? I want them to stay and work in the hospital in Sabah Sarawak. So they should get Elang Wilayah.
Oh.
You see, there are a lot of silly rules. You see, a lot of these rules were made 40, 50 years ago. And in this day and age, the rules still apply. So, yeah, if I'm a Sabahan, I don't get the extra 1,000. So what they do? You apply for UM to work in the Semenanjung. And opportunities are better because I can suck up to the bosses here in University Malaya, and I know I can get and if I work here, chances of getting a service MO post is better. Because at the end of the day, better the devil you know than someone who like good CV, but how should I know that it's not, a lot of people got good CVs but they're terrible in real life.
I heard that in UM there's this like training pathway to be specialist, because recently they had this like they briefed the year 5 students, right? They say it's a 7-year thing.
Yeah, so what basically UM, kudos to them, and also basically if you join as a service MO, we will make sure that you become a specialist in the end. So it is and because a lot of the UM bosses, they are the people who are in power and leadership. A lot of them are overseas graduate and they are all consultant specialists. So of course, their thinking is very much different. Whereas the people who are running human resource in KKM, a lot of them are not doctors. So of course they know that doctors will want a career progression. So of course, even though the pay is as bad as in KKM, but I get to be in Klang Valley and I have a structured training pathway. I know that if I work hard and I pass my exams, I'll be a specialist in X number of years. People want that certainty, okay? And if you don't become a specialist in the X number of years, it's actually your fault because you failed to pass the exams. So it's like my fault lah. I didn't study hard, I didn't pass the exam, that's my fault. I fully accept the blame. So people want that certainty. So of course, you join as a service MO, but of course then it's very competitive, and sometimes it's not competitive as in like ability competitive, it's like the post, a lot of times if you analyze who gets it, is people who have worked in UM before. Why? Because I actually know this person and I know that this person can work. So I really know this is a proven quantity. Do you want someone who looks nice on paper, but then when you hire them, it's like, oh my goodness, this person is terrible. Okay, you want a proven quantity, isn't it? So it's not that fair, but proven quantities tend to get. But of course, if you do your housemanship in UM and you underperform, then that's it lah. You actually blew your chance of working here lah. Yeah, but if you join as a service MO, you'll be in masters, and then you pass all your exams, you'll be a pakar, and then you're guaranteed a specialty training spot.
But in turn, you have to bond with UM for 15 years?
It doesn't matter lah. But you see, you want that certainty, isn't it? You see, why do doctors become doctors?
To help people.
No. See, most of your are A students, type A personality. I study hard, I must get rewarded. I score straight A's, I go into medicine. I work hard, I make money. Okay? You want certainty. Make less money, never mind. But you see, your C class friend, the guy who gets C grade, of course, we are looking at survival bias lah. For everyone that succeeds, there's 999 that didn't succeed. But your C class friend, they are willing to work with uncertainty. They're willing okay, I don't know, this drink, I don't know whether it will make it or not. It's popular in Taiwan, but I bring it to Malaysia, it may not work. But never mind, he's go to Taiwan. In fact, I heard of this guy, he's banana, he doesn't speak Chinese. He went to China to go and get this, because he heard this popular drink. Imagine, the amount of hustle you need, okay, to not speak Mandarin, okay, and then he goes there, get the Frenchmanship right to bring it to Malaysia. I heard there's a story I don't know how far it's true, but these are the kind of hustling culture in people who from the C class world. That's why at the end of the day, A students will work for B students who work for C students. Okay, why? Because they are willing to take risks. There is no guarantee of success. They're willing. But all these A students, straight A students, what do they want? They want certainty. They don't like uncertainty. Maybe or maybe not. I might give you a training program. Maybe, maybe not. We haven't decided when we want to make you permanent. We haven't decided whether permanent, non-permanent people can apply for HLP or cannot. You keep on saying this kind of thing. No A student is going to tolerate this kind of nonsense. You have to understand people's psychology. They want certainty. That's why Singapore is so attractive, even though a lot of people know, hey, Singapore doesn't actually want me. They only want me to fill all the posts that Singaporeans want. It's career suicide. And a lot of people are willing to take career suicide because it's certainty. Okay, career suicide, but I guess certainty. And they cannot live with uncertainty.
Why do you say it's career suicide?
Because they will go in, you see, look, anyone of you want to go in there to become GPs?
Actually, some of my seniors, they became GPs. But it's
Whether
like,
it was something they really, really wanted, or it was like, I got no choice because now I'm in Singapore and this is the only thing that's offered for them. You have to understand, if you interview a third year, fourth year, final year, the number of that are truly, not to say bad things about GPs, they're great, they are very essential, and I love them. I've met many great GPs. But your average final year student, if you interview them, I think less than 10% say they want to do family medicine or GPs. The majority say I want to be a cardiothoracic surgeon, I want to be a cardiologist, I want to be gastroenterologist. So a lot of them are very, very ambitious. And you see the number of them that ended up GP and the number of them that ended up gastroenterologist, cardiologist, you know that this is not what they truly wanted. This is what the Singaporean gave them. Okay? So you have to understand, hey, look, but they pay you very well and you get work-life balance and all. And if that's what you want, more power to you. But I can tell you honestly, a lot of them made the trade-off. They're like, okay, I'm sacrificing my dream. A lot of them sacrifice their dream. Okay, I'm sacrificing my dream for career certainty and for money. Let's be honest about it. And if you're honest about it, fine, I'm all right with it. But don't tell me you didn't sacrifice your dream.
don't you think it's like two extremes? In Malaysia, you sacrifice your family, your social aspect. But then in Singapore, you don't have your dream, but you trade back your personal life.
Actually, you don't have much of it because you're far away from family still. See, that is why people think that we need a lot of money to beat the Singaporeans. We cannot pay at the same rate as the Singaporeans. But you see, all we have to do is just improve the pay by a bit, improve the working conditions by a bit, give a certain pathway like how we give in UM, and people will stay in KKM in droves. And your Madani will get credit for saving the healthcare system, providing so many new specialists. You can win elections from it. But all these things need the medium, you see, you need short range planning, medium range planning, long range planning. Unfortunately, the Malaysian government doesn't have medium long range. They only give, election is coming already, what can we do? Give a pay, give a holiday, win work, we win a gold medal here, get a holiday here. You see, the holiday once it's spent, what is it? No more already. Can we have something that's more long lasting that have actually like some tangible consequences? All you have to do is raise the doctor's pay, they're finally raising the on-call allowance, all that sort of thing. But all these things, can you give people certainty? Look, all the doctors, all the people, you work certain number of years, okay, you'll be automatic, you serve 3 years already, you'll be automatic, get your permanent, and then you'll get a HLP to continue your subspecialty. Because we can also talk about, you see, the number of years people become a subspecialist. Yeah, you see, in UK, Singapore, 1 year housemanship, 3 years basic. It's the same like in UK. Singapore apes UK. 1 year UK, 1 year housemanship foundation year, basic medical training, 3 years, and then after you pass your MRCP with these 3 years, you get into a training program straight away. And then 7 years, you want to become add acute medicine or gen med in between, you certification, you get 8 years, you want to do PhD 9 years. So you get a PhD, PhD gastroenterology and also general medicine consultant in the space of 9 years from graduation. Whereas Malaysia, 2 years subscription, then you need to work 3 years and get the whatever before you can get, whether in contract or not contract, I'm talking about the old system, 3 years and you must get your KPI more than 85%, then you get into first year masters. Then masters 4 years, then gazettement is 6 months. But then after that, you must have 2 to 3 years post, if let's say you apply for gastro or cardio, you have to be like post gazettement 2 to 3 years before you get into your subspecialty training. And then that is okay, 2 years, 11.5 years. Then subspecialty training for gastro is 4 years. So 15.5 years. Okay, and then you're just the basic gastroenterologist. Whereas if you basic gastroenterologist in UK, 7 years. Yeah, so it's half the time. So if let's say someone set for the MRCP, passed the MRCP, and UK was giving out posts like nobody's business, you think people don't want to leave? Of course people left. Yeah, because it's half the time. Singapore, if you are lucky, you get what you want. It's like within 7 years also they are subspecialists already. Yeah. But
Is it because we spend a lot of time for them to wait?
so basically, again, this is short-term thinking. So why? I don't have an. You see, of course, the average Singaporean is better educated than Malaysia. So you say, hey, you're not even a subspecialist. I want to be seen by subspecialist, so you need to create as many subspecialists as you can. Here, again, no offense to the kampung people, the new village people, oh, you get see doctor already very good, even though he's just like, I don't know, even don't jack shit. You give Panadol, give cough syrup, they're happy already. Okay, you talk to the Chinese auntie from the new village, give them cough syrup, they think you're the greatest doctor on the planet, but actually you can't even read ECGs properly. Okay, so how does, you see, then the government knows, okay, these are my voting public, right? Okay, I just need to con them, and they think I'm doing a good job. So you just create, so in between housemanship to entering master's basic medical training, you create this MO post for 3 years before you can apply. So then you got a lot of people who can do the work of giving cough syrup, PCM, and all that sort of thing in the small towns lah, in Kampar, in Manjung, and all that sort of thing. Then the voting public will be very happy. Oh, this government did a good job.
Oh, actually, I'm curious, right? Like all these blood taking scans are they distributed between doctors and nurses?
No, of course not. See, many years ago, nurses used to do a lot of the blood taking, but as the number of doctors increased, they needed the experience, so they say that nurses cannot take blood, only doctors can. But what happened is, this was during the 5,000. Then, so the whole generation of nurses have never been allowed to take blood. So what happened is, then suddenly when the number of doctors dropped, then we got a whole generation of nurses who never taken blood before, and then you cannot suddenly get them to start taking blood because I never did it. Yeah, and now of course all the old generation who used to do a lot of this, they all retired already. So you see a lot of times when you do something badly, then the consequences is, even though you reverse course, the thing will continue to happen. So now the number of housemen has dropped from 5,000 dropped to 500, only 10%, 20% of it are being filled. Then what happened? But back then, the nurses can help with the blood taking. In my time, there were only 500. But the nurses help with blood taking and all. But now the nurses can help. So in fact, the houseman of today is going to be worse off than the houseman of 10 years, 15 years ago. And all because of poor planning. Doctors are working less hours than the doctors of yesteryears. Why is the burnout more? Or the reported burnout lah. Okay. The reported burnout is more why? Because, of course, the contract system, the pay and all that sort of thing, career progression. The other thing is, look, one person had to run the whole damn ward. Okay, versus Dr. Tan's time, where I got 2 other friends to help me. And if I'm busy resuscitating, my friends can still continue taking blood and requesting for scans. And when I finish resuscitating, hey, the work is half done. I just continue to do it as. Whereas imagine you finish resuscitating, hey, doctor, you still got 30 patients blood to take. You can imagine the psychological impact. So it's not about the number of hours work, Sometimes it's how intense the hours work. I rather have 100 like moderate or easy hours, okay, than to have 60 intense non-stop hours. Which one you think will burn out faster? You work shorter hours, but it's just you are intense. So a lot of times it's not about the number of hours. That's why the government, they're not very bright. They make the wrong diagnosis. So when you make a wrong diagnosis, the treatment you give is wrong. The correct diagnosis is the working conditions, okay, and you have to understand, in order working conditions improve the pay. I cannot compete with Singapore and all that sort of thing, but I can compete in terms of you're close to home, you won't get sent very far away, because if you're going to send me to Sabah Sarawak, I might as well get sent to Singapore. Okay.
Yeah, it's also a flight away.
Yeah, and it's closer. Yeah, and there's like 2-3 flights a day from Singapore every day. Okay. In fact, there are more flights from Singapore to Malaysia than there are from Sabah Sarawak to Malaysia to Peninsula. It's a no-brainer. So you have to beat Singapore and other things. So I had to look. the number of hours you think you're gonna, you see, it's aping the developed countries. You are aping, you're trying to ape people, but you see, Singapore has way more house officers, low-ranking doctors doing all this, so they can afford the 63 hours. You implement 63 hours without getting enough people, you end up working people will even leave even more. So it's, again, it's about the implementation, yeah.
Recently, there's also been like some discourse about like whether or not it's ethical for doctors to leave for Singapore, especially for Malaysian citizens, because I feel like Malaysian doctors should serve Malaysia. So, what do you think are the exceptions to this, or like, what are your thoughts?
Okay, for example, personal view, if let's say you are Satung, Saluran Terbuka, your parents paid for your education, then leave for Singapore, please by all means, because you don't owe the Malaysian part. But even then, Satung before the price increase, it was still heavily subsidized actually. After the price increase, still a bit of subsidy because you pay 550,000, but the true cost is actually 850 to 900,000. So actually, maybe Satum also don't get to go to Singapore. But put it this way, even though if you pay back all the money, is it fair? I pay you back, I pay everything. You know, so 500,000 fees, I also, on top of that, I paid the 300,000 because the true cost. Is it still fair? Put it this way, you're very hungry, you're very, very hungry, you go to this kway teow store here for this last batch of kway teow, okay? And then you paid already for the kway teow, 8 ringgit, and the guy is frying. Suddenly, another person comes in and says, Uncle, is that the last plate of kway teow? I pay you twice the price, 15 ringgit. You sell to me, and the uncle tells you, okay, here's your 8 ringgit, I give you back. I'm selling to the guy who's giving me 15. What will you feel at that point in time?
Betrayed.
Yeah. You see, actually, I don't want, you see, you didn't betray the government. The people who go left for Singapore, they betrayed the rakyat. Because the rakyat, I want the service of this doctor. So we subsidize your education. Okay? And even if you pay, and now it's bad because you go to Singapore without paying back the bond, isn't it? All the years of subsidy, you didn't even pay back a single cent, and you benefit the Singaporeans. Okay? And even if you pay back, it's like, come on, I actually don't want the money, you know. At that point in time, when you're hungry, do you want the money or do you want that plate of kway teow?
Kway teow.
You want the kway teow more, isn't it? Do you think the rakyat wants your service as a doctor and potentially become a specialist in the future, or that 800,000 ringgit you give back? Same with JPA and everything lah. So actually, we are not looking for. Actually, I think as speaking as a member of the rakyat and all, I don't think I'm looking for the money. I don't want to be paid back. I want the service. Okay, but that being said, the government has to improve to make things better, working condition better and all. And it's not by aping developed countries. You see, what is the situation you have? And how I can't beat in money, but I can beat on working condition. So like I said, 63 intense hours, 100 easy hours. Okay, let's create more easy hours for the doctors. Yeah, so that, I come to work, I'm not like, actually feel happy coming to work. I got colleagues. Okay, there's 4 of us in the ward. Wow. Okay, and sometimes, paradoxically, because my numbers are less, I have to go back to the on-call system. The on-call system, paradoxically, may actually create better working hours, better working condition than a poorly implemented shift system.
Maybe that would be a good transition to go into for us to like lessen the stress among the doctors. But then ideally, do you think we can still transition to getting more people and then going back to shift system?
You see, you want to go to shift system, like I said, if let's say 3 people, on-call system, you got 3 people, you can do on-call system. You want to go to a full shift system, you need at least 9 people. But from getting to 3 and 9 people, okay, it takes some time. So when you have 5 or 6, if I got 6 people, so if I have an ideal number for shifts, a well-functioning shift system, maybe I need 9. Okay, but right now I only have 5. Okay, what happens is you create a very lousy shift system with that 5 people. Because ideally, if I need 9, ideally, and I only got 5, I create a very bad shift system. But if you got 5 people, you put them on the on-call system, it creates a totally luxurious on-call system already. Because the old on-call system, when you had 3 people, is 10 calls per month. When you have 5 people, it dropped to 6 calls. So people respond to improvement in life. So when I was a house officer, my hours were 100 hours per week. Okay, but when I became an MO, it dropped to 85 hours per week. So I have a 15-hour improvement. So I actually felt, wow, this is actually great. Because you see, you are so used to waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning, suddenly if you only need to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, it's a luxury.
But do you think that it is like a question of, you know, your life or KKM? Because I feel like it's making us choose, you know.
No, it's actually a lot of it is perception. You see, what happens is when you are a houseman, you get shift system. But when you go to MO, what happens is, because in certain places, there's not enough people, so they go back to on-call system as a MO. So houseman works shift system, MO works on-call. They go back to the on-call system. Yeah, so imagine if you are 63 hours per week as a houseman, and suddenly you go up to 75 hours per week as a MO. What you see is a 12-hour deterioration in your quality of life. Correct? So you actually work less hours as a MO compared to the MOs of old. But why do the MOs of old don't get burned out? Because, you see, let's say you're born of life of luxury. Your parents are very rich, and suddenly you become poor. Which is easier to? You become poor, rich people becoming poor, adjust better, or poor people becoming rich?
Rich become poor.
Rich become poor has a harder time readjusting, isn't it? Even though they're still more well off than the poor guy. Because my time, I went from 100 hours to 85 hours. I work less 15 hours already. I get extra every day. That means I get extra 2-3 hours every day. You know, I was like, it's like your mind is blown. Now you from 63 hours, you got to 75 hours. As a MO, you still work 10 hours less than an all-day MO. I'm not saying that my time is better. I'm not saying that how great I am. I'm just saying when you go from 63 hours to 75 hours, there's a clear deterioration in quality of life. And I can see why people are like, this is frustrating. I want to quit. It's not because we were superior or more hardworking or more resilient in my time. It's just that it's a psychological thing where I went from 100 hours to 90 hours, 85 hours. It's like I'm more likely to stay than the guy who went from 63 to 75 hours, even though he works, objectively, he works 10 hours less. It's actually a lot of it is psychology. It's all psychology. You give me a 10 ringgit pay rise, I feel like, oh, I'm so happy I got a 10 ringgit. Actually, it's not a lot compared to the Singaporean, but because there is an increment, it's like, oh, this is much better than we used to have. Then people are actually like, okay, maybe I can. You have to give people a reason to stay. You don't want them to stay until they become, okay, maybe I stay another few more years. I think I can do this.
But do you think this will lead to like the KKM not being changed after all? It's like, it's kind of like you're luring your prey. Like you put a bit of food. And then
No, but you see, what change do you want? Because the change that we now have is a change for the worse. Because people are just leaving. Yeah.
I feel like we could implement it in a few stages. Maybe the first stage can be what you said, like transitioning to the on-call, so that we get less intense workload and we attract more people to stay.
Yes.
And then when we have more people, then we can...
Of course. Then when you have enough, you see, then you have to be realistic. How many people do I actually need to implement a functioning shift system? If I need 9 to 10 and I only have 5, I cannot implement it now.
Or maybe not shift system, but maybe just one more off day.
Maybe we can do whatever. But you see, you have to be based on what is your manpower needs that you have now. So of course in 2020, 2021, when we had this historical 5,000 house officers, instead of like, look, let's permanent, okay, let's not permanent everyone because not all of them were functioning, but you give a permanent 80 to 85% of them, we could have a function. All of them would have been in subspecialty training by now. Imagine 4,000 people doing specialty training now. Okay, at the end of it, I had like 3,000 specialists. And you can 3,000 specialists distribute in all the hospitals in the country. It's like, it was a no-brainer. But in the end, we kept them in the COVID centers, didn't give them a clear path to progression. Every time when they ask, hey, how's my contract system? Wait, only you're not happy, leave lah. So when you tell people like this, KKM was being arrogant. So you tell people to leave, people left.
Actually now they're absorbing more, right? I think this year is like 4,500 for this year. Do you think the contract doctor thing is like sort of being solved? Or
What do you mean
see-
4,500 people
I
there?
think according to a recent report I read, I'm not sure if it's like accurate or not, lah, but it says that they are going to absorb 4,500
Yeah,
to make them permanent.
Yeah, you see, but the problem is, you finally, this is already too little too late. Because you see a lot of we have to understand within this 4,500, okay, some of them are actually good, some of them are actually very, very bad. The ones who may not be able to survive in the private, so they stay. A lot of my favorite ones that are like, this person went private already, like shit. You see, then when you suddenly create a lot of posts, then you absorb everyone, then you're forced to take everyone in. And not everyone is good. And then you're just, you make people permanent, but some of them actually don't deserve permanent. A lot of them deserve it, but you're just, this is how KKM always, this is how the Malaysian government always works. It's like they don't, so when a lot of people, good people left already, then suddenly they open, and then they cannot fill up the post, they just take everyone. So it creates a situation where you have a lot of people who actually don't deserve to be permanent, but the ones who should have stayed have left, and a lot of them that shouldn't stay is like, oh, now you absorb them into masters and they're doing gonna become a specialist.
Do you think it's because they don't have like a proper evaluation system, or they simply don't evaluate?
I think this evaluation, again, a lot of times there's no such thing as a perfect evaluation system. There will always be flaws, and people like someone for no apparent reason and hate someone for no apparent reason. But I think a lot of it is, just poor planning. They just didn't plan for it. They just don't plan for it, and then suddenly when everyone is leaving and they suddenly realize, I cannot fill, the houseman post I cannot fill. Yeah, you say you create this 4,000 posts and you absorb them from non-permanent to permanent. But you see, it does not reverse the damage done already, because there are only like 500-600 housemen last year. And then there will be this 500 housemen, if all of them stay, you get 600 MOs. If 80%, 10%, 10-20% leave, you only get 400-500 MOs. So what's the point of creating 4,500 when in the future you only be 500 MOs? It's too little, too late, and too much damage done already.
So, okay, this question is from my batchmates.
Yeah.
So they are all wondering, like, what are the things you should consider when you are thinking to go Singapore?
I wouldn't encourage it, but you be prepared that they won't give you the things that you want, and you will have to. Yeah. So some of your seniors that I previously thought, they become a resident physician. Resident physician is a nice name for chronic MO. You cannot become the consultant ENT surgeon, but you're a resident physician for ENT. So you get paid well, and you do 80-90%. You can do 90-80% of the work, because 80-90% of the work is just the thing. You can't just do the complex surgery because you're not in a training program. So what happens is, your houseman that you previously taught, trained, and teach how to do all the procedures, but he gets to go into the training program. Now he's your boss. How will you feel?
Like neglected, lor.
Yeah. When you are young, you think money is everything, but you see, you won't stay young forever. You won't be young and beautiful forever.
Are there a lot of them like this?
Yeah. So after a while, they leave they will talk about leaving that place, because even though that person still treated nice, because, oh, you are my chegu, you are my guru, you taught me how to do this, I'm very appreciative. But it's like, it's the dynamics have changed.
Are there people who are doing very well in Singapore?
Of course, there are some in orthopedics, some in gastroenterology, but you have to see what is the overall. It's like, and what are your chances? Okay, the ones who there was this guy. Everyone thinks he's going to be the next. I don't want to say his name, because everyone thinks that they're going to be. When they heard he got a certain highly desired specialty, everyone thinks but that guy is like, number one, he's already like outstanding distinction student, published tier 1 papers as a medical student. Okay, and then when he went to Singapore, he so happened that the place that he was assigned to, his boss was on the national training board. And how did I know this? Because the boss was invited as an external examiner, and I was also an external examiner. Then we were chatting and saying, oh, you're from UM. Oh, do you know this person? And I said, yeah, it was my ex-student, very outstanding. Yeah. Oh, yes. And he was like, and the next 10-15 minutes, this boss was just going on, Singaporean boss, associate professor, going on in NUS, going on about how good this person is. When I graduated, I didn't even have a tier 1 journal. This one medical student already got tier 1 journal. It's very outstanding. 10-15 minutes, this guy was up. So I know, they haven't had that interview at that point in time. But listening to this guy talk, I know he's going to pass that interview already. So unless you have a boss like that, so you may be outstanding, but your boss is a nobody in Singapore, so you end up with nothing. So everything has to be. You have to the stars have to align and all that sort of thing. And for the majority of you, the stars will only align for one person, isn't it? For the rest of you, the stars will never align.
Why is that only for one person?
Because that's how stars are aligned. Right now, only one person will win the lottery, isn't it? And for the other 999,000, that 999,999, they will not win. Maybe another 10-15 will get some consolation prize lah. But only one person will win the grand prize, isn't it?
So it's what happens when you are not the person getting a lottery.
Yes, can you accept it? And I think that's basically life, isn't it? Why am I not born pretty? Some people are born pretty. Why am I not born smart? Some people are born smart. We do the best we can with whatever we are given, and we try our best. You can get depressed, like that person is more beautiful than me. That person, I like this girl, the more handsome guy got the girl. You can be depressed about it. You know what? I hope she's happy. Go find somebody else lah.
Since your life is also a series of your choices,
of course.
You can always make a different choice at the end of it too.
Mm.
At your own cost.
Of course, it's all trade-offs. We all. I think in life you have to go on. Life is not fair. Life does not make sense, and a lot of times we don't get what we deserve. But at the same time, not getting what you deserve is also great, because you know what? I probably deserve a lot of punishment for a lot of bad things I've done, and I don't get what I deserve. Isn't that good? Correct or not? We always think we deserve good things, but sometimes have you ever thought you might deserve bad things because we are not such great people and so deserving either. So we are more deserving of bad things than good things, but we don't get the bad things that we deserve. So it's fair lah. I don't get the good things I deserve. I also don't get the bad things I deserve. And sometimes in this situation, when life is unfair, maybe it's for the good that life is unfair. Isn't it? Maybe it's not such a bad thing after all. We always think we are such good people that we deserve good things, but how maybe on the scale of things, there are so many people better than us who deserve so much better things than us, and yet we are getting more good things than them. So in that sense, life being not fair may be the better thing, isn't it?
But I feel like it's not zero sum. I feel
Of
like
course.
the amount of goodness you get is not.
Of course. But a lot of times, where you go and all, but you see, opportunities are more, you can say in Malaysia, they are there, they are better. The chances of you becoming a gastroenterologist or cardiologist is much better in Malaysia than you are in Singapore. Definitely. That we know for a fact. Okay.
But all in all, with all the sacrifices that you've made in your career to be a doctor, like all the weddings, meetings with your family that you miss, do you ever think about it and feel what would happen if I wasn't in medicine? Do you ever have these thoughts?
Oh, of course. Who wouldn't have had these thoughts? Yeah, of course.
How do you tackle it? Because sometimes, even when I think about it, even when I'm still in medical school, I think what if I chose another course? Then maybe I wouldn't have to be so, so stressed in the future.
Sure, but at the same time, if you look at the things that you can do for people, like your friends. Okay, I counted friends. Have they ever saved a life before? Have you ever sat in a line and run the fluid and bring the BP up and give antibiotics and reverse the septic shock? I don't think anyone can say that kind of things. And again, it's all about the trade-offs. You get things, you pick up a cancer early for a patient. The patient lives and thanks you for it. I don't think anyone else can have this satisfaction. Okay, so of course we will have more satisfaction than a lot of people in their career paths. Of course, if I'm not in medicine, I'd probably be married and have 3 kids and all. Would I be happier? I might have been happier. But again, there are so many things that, but you see, we wouldn't know. We wouldn't know. It's all these things. You don't know. And again, it's whatever is, we are happiest, and there are people look as, wow, doctors, I wish I was a doctor. Yeah, and of course, when you're a doctor, there are things that, you know, you can call a friend, hey, can you do this early for my mom or dad? It's like there are a lot of things that intangible that we can get that graduate from It's like, you know, so when the bosses can get things done much quicker than for a lot of people out there. So there are some privileges. Okay, but I'm talking in general for everyone, for all the doctors in general. If you want people to stay, you want to improve your system, you have to have some incremental, you don't have to be a lot, but it has to be incremental when people can say like, oh, my life as a MO is better than when I was a houseman, and when I become a specialist it's better than, then people will stay. You know, right now my life was good as a houseman, it's horrible as a MO, there's no career progression, there's no hope, there doesn't seem, people leave. Yeah. Like I said, 63 hours, you implement 63 hours for houseman now. What about the MOs? Okay? And then when they come MO, oh sorry, you had to work 80 hours. So yes, it's shorter than 10 years ago, but you know, it's a deterioration. Whereas people who go on for 100 to 90 hours, I still work 10, 15 hours longer than you. But I was like, oh, so much better.
So maybe they need to stop making the changes on the outside, but start from within.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for today's episode, Doctor.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for asking really, really important questions. Okay, take care.
Okay, bye.